So guys, everyone loves this game. Should we give it one more chance?
No.
No.
It's too nice. I want something dark.
It's too cutesy.
Yeah.
We've been playing Tiny Towns and
Men at Work.
Yeah.
It's
We just need something darker.
If we're going to have meebles, I want to sacrifice them some sort of horrific entity.
I think that's the only way we're going to get a game like that. Boys, one of us is getting sacrificed. Rock, paper, scissors for it?
I feel like that's the only way we can.
Okay.
Haha.
Jimmy.
Get on the table, Daryl. We are sacrificing you.
Let's get the sriracha sauce.
Alright, I don't take any pleasure from this.
Okay.
Kalima! Kalima!
Guys! Nom nom survive! Nom nom survive!
Guys, get me out!
Sorcerer is a board game that mimics collectible card games to an extent. It's been in development for about 7 years, starting in 2012 before moving to a Kickstarter in 2017. Eventually got its release in 2019. So, what's it about? Well, players, rather than fighting one another, are in fact going to be fighting over 3 separate battlefields using cards which are formed into kind of a deck. But how does it actually play? Let's have a look.
Okay, so you start off by picking one of 4 characters. Nice little divider that goes between them. First guy, you've got Ariaspes. It's kind of like a hooded raven-esque dude, I went away. You've got a female elf, Miss Zelda. You've got Tegu, kind of like a demon guy. And you've got kind of like a corpse, Zevrain. He's kind of cool. You then pick your lineage. Again, another little divider. You got your demonologist. You've got your necromancer. You've got your animist, and you've got your bloodlord. Okay. Once you've done that, you go on to your domain. You can either pick the Screaming Coast, the Haunted Forest, the Outcast Sanctuary, or last but not least, the Forgotten Temple. Once you've done that, make your deck.
So what you're actually going to do is you're going to grab 3 of these. So let's say I'm going to grab Ariaspes, the Necromancer, from the Screaming Coast. You're going to take those 3. You're going to take the top card on each deck. So in other words, the bit that actually explains what they are. And you are going to mash those decks together and you are going to give them a good shuffle, because that's basically going to make your deck for the game. What you're going to do then is you're actually going to start playing. The first thing you're going to do is pass the first player token to one of the people. That's going to be popped on their nice little player sheet there. It's also going to start with an energy of 5, and you'll put a red marker down to say that you're going to have basically 6 turns. What's going to happen then is you're going to kind of go through the battlefields if you've already got people on there, and you're going to refresh the cards. So if they've had a turn before, you'll turn them upwards. At that point, you can then gain 1 Omen token. What these are going to do is they're going to let you re-roll dice over the course of the game. And at that point, you're kind of ready to go into the action phase, which is kind of a resource management phase, where you're going to be building energy in order to summon cards, where you're going to basically take a number of cards which are going to be your starting hand. To play them, you're going to need to spend energy. So one of the things you can do during your action phase is you can meditate to draw 2 cards from your deck to give you more things to play with. You can channel energy, which is you gain 2 energy on your track, or you can start actually playing cards. You're going to see you've got a battlefield out here, which is basically going to have your little dude. So you're going to choose which battlefield you're going to put him into. Once you've done that, you know that your 3 cards that you took off the top at the beginning of the game, those are going to be special abilities that are only going to be able to be used in that particular battlefield that your character is currently in. But what you are going to be doing is summoning new monster cards by spending energy on your turn to put onto a battlefield to a maximum of 4 creatures per battlefield. So also as a turn, as you're moving your little tracker down, you're going to also be possibly playing any spell cards as well as any attachments which just connect onto your guys there and give them extra abilities in battle. So what you're then going to be doing is moving on to a battle phase where you're going to start to roll some dice. So what's going to happen is you're going to go from the left battlefield of the first player. On the left and rightmost battlefields, you're going to be letting the second player go first. On the centre battlefield, the first player is going to go first. So it's a little bit confusing as to who goes when. What you're then going to do is start going backwards and forwards using one card that's on the battlefield to attack the other side and then letting them do the same. What you will do is, for attack, you're going to be rolling a number of dice. These are custom dice with various different sides. You could roll nothing at all, 1 hit, 2 hits, or a critical. What happens there is any hits, the other player decides where they go. You see, this game is about conquering a battlefield rather than your opponent as such. So they're going to be able to choose where their hits go, whether it's on another minion on one of their cards to reduce the number of enemies on their side, or whether they want to let the damage go directly through to the battlefield. Now, the critical hits work a little bit differently. A critical hit, you're allowed to choose where that damage goes. But if it's unopposed, if the other player does not have any cards on their side, it then counts as 2 hits going onto the battlefield. What's going to happen is, you're going to move your little damage counter up on the battlefield until you hit 12, at which point the battlefield becomes conquered, and you count that towards your score. The first person to conquer 2 out of the 3 battlefields wins the game.
One of the things I wanted to draw attention to with this game is the lore aspect. Normally in a collectible card game, you've got quite a big lore aspect overriding across the back of it. In this sort of game, you wouldn't normally expect as much lore. But on the box, got lore for all the cool characters printed across it. While the lore is cool, it doesn't have a huge part in the game. It's a nice little background flesh out for it. So something like Masalada and the Screaming Coast, 2 things that, in terms of their lore, fit together really well. However, the main decks of the game, stuff like the Bloodlord and the Necromancer, not things that fit that much into the lore, which is a shame, because the lore itself is very cool. Stuff like writing about how she controls the waves and sea creatures is something I would have liked to see more in the combativeness of the decks. Like, more things to do with their background. They're the cool things about the game. While the game itself has summoning elements, they are the summoners. Why aren't we seeing more about them? Another big part of the game appears to be the sort of themes. Something that I really like in my trading card games. I'll build a deck based around a theme and I'll find the synergies there. Some of the cards have some really good synergies. So something like Ariapses fits very well with the Necromancer. It feels like the card was meant to go with it. Now, in a card game where you're encouraged to mix and match, it makes you wonder why you would pick any other thing if the cards are almost meant to be together.
So it feels very much like, so let's take this guy for instance. He uses necromancy to bring stuff back from your graveyard, which is a really good theme, considering the fact that he's kind of like this sort of cultist, sort of Egyptian sort of guy that's kind of based around that kind of thing. So a lot of the deck will be mummies with him or undead, which is really, really clever. But the game kind of suggests that you randomise stuff. So if we're going by the game's kind of rules, if you will, you'd pick him, and then you might pick the demonologist, which, yeah, sure, it might work, but to be honest with you, the theme doesn't fit, because obviously he's now holding demons and stuff like that, which doesn't really kind of sit with his kind of, backstory that Ian was sort of describing earlier. It's the same with the actual demon. If you got the demon and then you made him pick the Amonist, it's like beasts and creatures and kind of very much seems to fit the elf character more than anything else. So again, it's that weird kind of situation where the game encourages you to kind of mix it up a little bit and kind of make a deck out of 3 random sort of things, but in a way we quite like keeping it as their theme should be. So like the elf should be from the Screaming Coast, she should have the animus abilities, fits really well. The demon should be the bloodletter with, you know, should be living in the sanctum or whatever. It works really well if you stick with the theme. It feels a bit strange if you don't.
And really, that's one thing I really want to talk about is what happens if you do decide you want to randomise your decks. The setup for this game can sometimes be absolutely horrendous when you have to basically take every card apart and pull them all into their separate decks before playing 2 games in a row. It's just something you really don't want to do, and you usually end up just playing with the same decks over and over anyway. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how decks are constructed in this game, and that's because it largely does mimic a CCG. You're going to find there's a lot of symbology on the cards that everyone who plays this game is going to have to know, and that really comes with playing the game over and over and over, which really makes me feel like this is a board game aimed at CCG players over board gamers trying to get into a CCG game. That's how it feels to me, despite the inclusion of things like dice and these really, really nice counters and things like that you get. Like, the component quality for this game is amazing. Yet, I would say we have played this game a few times, and every time we've played it and then said, let's give the multiplayer version of this game a try, where the battlefields are put in between players, and you're playing for points rather than conquering a single battlefield, we never kind of felt like we wanted to play this again.
We don't really make it, do we? We
No,
never make it.
no.
We play 1-on-1 and then it's just a...
I mean, I like the game. I think it's clever. I like how the ready phase and the action phase works before you go into a battle phase. I like the artwork, which I think is beautiful. I like all of the cool little bits. The dice are really nice quality. All the tokens, like Steve said, all beautiful. Maybe the card quality could do a bit better. Getting a bit of bowing. We haven't had it that long. But as a game, I don't feel like I want to play it more. I would rather make my own deck based around one of the cool characters that we were talking about earlier and work from there than be forced into a line I'm not that keen on playing.
So I've got to say, I feel like as a board gamer, I think I'm going to have a hard time introducing people to this game because there's a whole lot to remember, there's a whole lot to learn, and I don't just mean on a rules level, I mean on an understanding your deck kind of level.
Yeah.
And as a collectible card game player, you're going to feel like this deck isn't really yours, which is obviously a big part of collectible card games. You're kind of just mashing one of, well, 3 of 4 things together and seeing how it works, basically, which isn't really the appeal to collectible card games.
I think this was one of the things when I was asking you, like, what do some of the symbols mean? You've got certain, most of them all have like omens on them, or like little, it's basically like tiny little medals on the top. I mean, you can't even see them. And I was like, what's this new symbol? And you're like, oh, it's fly. And then it's kind of, it's an ability that doesn't really, I mean, it probably does have its place, but we can't figure it out if it has an actual place. Like,
I think it's something, if you played the game a lot, you'd get used to. But
maybe, yeah.
do you want to play the game a lot?
And that's the problem we've had. We don't want to play this game a lot.
We agree we'd want to play it again, but not anytime soon. We're not rushing to it. It's not on our list of like, let's go back now, let's play another game of this.
I love elements of it, but couldn't be fussed about other elements of it, and there's not enough there to make me want to play more.
There's a lot of breaks in the game as well. We talked about these counters, these omen counters, and these first player tokens. They all let you re-roll dice. So when you're rolling your dice in order to attack things, you could be having this back and forth for ages while someone's saying, I'm going to spend one of my omen tokens to make you re-roll that dice. Or, well, I'm going to do the same again. And then one of them decides, I'm going to use my first player token, which allows you to re-roll every single dice. And it all of a sudden just becomes a back and forth of rolling dice until people basically run out of omens to
I mean, yeah, this
make them
happened with
re-roll.
one of our
Yeah,
games.
me and Daryl played. Daryl stacked up maybe 20 omens.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I was well ahead at that point, so it didn't bother me too much.
No.
But we spent a whole round of just re-rolling all my rolls to see if Daryl could survive, and it just
went on, and to be honest, at this point, we were all kind of like, we know you've won, or there's no way of coming back. Is there any point in continuous plays? And we kept asking ourselves, should we just end it here, call it here? And we still had quite a few rounds left, and we were just sort of going. I mean, I definitely was. I was getting fatigue. I was getting real fatigue, and it was just sat there going. Maybe if, like we said, we played it religiously and got through the decks and understood the decks, and tried all the combinations, tried everything, and then found something that works for us. Maybe then we would try and go, oh, actually, I like this game, but I'm only going to play as these 3 things or those 3 things. I'm not going to play as anything else.
This is the thing. I would love to make a Macillida deck based on water things, controlling tides and stuff like that. It's not really an option.
One thing I will say though is they are releasing lots and lots of expansions for this game. They're coming out fairly regularly at the moment, which is adding more to the game, but unfortunately that doesn't really stop the fact that you're still limited to 3 sets of cards that you're shoving together, so you're never really getting a fully customized deck really. And as much as this seems like it's shortcutting the whole idea of deck building in order to just play the game, the deck building aspect of these games is always a big part of it. And this game loses part of its playability in not having that really.
You can understand why they're trying to hit up the board game market by going, look guys, you've got a set amount of cards, just mix these 3 together and that's your deck and you play like that. So there's obviously that setup value where you're not having to go through each card and go, I try to take that one, that one, that one, that one. Which is fine, but it doesn't work. It's not strong enough. It doesn't work enough for me personally to warrant picking this over something else.
Yeah, I can't see many board game players from our group. Not that I know them individually that well. I can't see many of them enjoying this.
No.
But as collectible card game players, between me and Daryl and you as well, we don't really want to play it as collectible card players either. So it's sort of...
It's in the middle, isn't it?
There's a weird middle ground where, yes, it is sort of accessible to everyone, but is it desired by everyone?
Yes, and really I think that leads us to the point that unfortunately we really can't recommend this game.
No.
As beautiful it is, as much as the design is
Looks
wonderful,
wise, 100%.
Beautiful.
the whole idea of managing your resources so that you don't get things like land fatigue and stuff like that, like you sometimes get in Magic, where you just get a poor draw of cards. Instead, this is all in your hands here. It's all under your control, and it's about managing your resources right, and that's a big part of this game, which makes it interesting. And it is a good system. It's just not a fun one. And I think that's it.
I'd love to see what expansions get brought out and what they bring to the game.
Maybe they'll add an option to,
At the moment, it's just additional characters, additional lineages, additional domains.
I'd still like to see how they function within the system, but it's still going to have that element where you have not control in a way that you want to have the control. And in the times we've played, we found that if you pick the Animist, you're going to do well.
This is the thing we were talking about. Each one of them, in theory, should have their own unique gimmick. The Animist has the ability to sort of put little tokens on the enemies, on their minions, which allow them to add attack power depending on how many you have on them, which is kind of what you were playing when we played. So he just basically kept adding these tokens, adding these tokens, adding these tokens, to the point where one of his really basic minions was so overpowered there was no point. We kind of looked through the other decks, see if they had anything else. There's a couple of other gimmicks, but nothing feels
Maybe we've
on
not
par
played
with
it
that.
enough.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
The gimmicks the other decks had didn't feel like they had the same clout to them.
Yeah, you had a burning ability, which obviously burns over time. Okay, fair enough. The Necromancer does have the kind of cool ability to go through the graveyard and re-bring in cards for like little cost or half cost or even none, which again, played right, probably could work really well. The Blood Lord was the one we were trying to figure out. It kind of adds another currency to the game, which is a
You can
kind
pay
of
for things
interesting
with
concept.
blood tokens.
Yeah, so for each card from, again, the starting cards that come with the individual character give you loads of blood. So for every character you play, it either gives you a blood token or kill someone, blood token, whatever, anything like that. That works really well, but then when you add some of the other cards from the other decks, it doesn't feel like they add anything to this blood ability. So that's the thing, it's because you're going to be having, I think it was what, like maybe 15, 16 cards from the main cards, mixed in with all the other ones, you're probably not going to be getting that many of the blood generating tokens to you. So this is the issue. It's kind of like...
This is just it, isn't it?
Yeah.
The domains and the characters dilute the potency of the main decks.
Yes.
But the domains and the characters are where all the interesting, cool stuff is. It might not be where the potent damage dealing stuff is, but that's the interesting bit.
Yeah, they
but
give
it
you a lot of
doesn't feel
things.
like it's doing anything for you.
Yeah. So really, to close this out, I have trouble knowing who this is truly aimed at.
Yes.
I feel like for every group of games you feel like this could appeal to, it has enough drawbacks to put them off at the same time, and really I feel like where this game has gone. On that, I would like to thank our Patreons for voting for this game to be video reviewed this month.
All of him.
All of him. If you would like to join in on the vote, you can do it at patreon.com/everybodydice, where you will also get access to our newsletter for just donating $1 a month. Other than that, you can follow us on our social media accounts on Instagram at Everybody Dice Show and on Twitter at Everybody Dice. You can find all of our content in one place, including our podcast at www.everybodydice.com. Thank you very much for watching this video, and we will see you again soon.
Bye.